Hello everyone and welcome to the Young and the Restless channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The storm clouds gathering over Genoa City were about to unleash chaos unlike anything a residents had seen in weeks, and at the center of it all stood a tangled web of betrayal, desperation, redemption, and fragile hope. As the days unfolded between May 18th and June 5th, every corner of the city seemed to pulse with emotional tension, secrets waiting to explode, and relationships hanging by a thread. For Phyllis Summers, the walls were beginning to close in faster than she ever expected. Yet even in the middle of her legal nightmare, she refused to surrender without a fight. There was still one dangerous card left in her hand, and it came in the form of Matt Clark, bound and gagged inside his GCAC suite like a prisoner trapped inside a nightmare of his own making. Phyllis believed that regaining leverage over Matt could finally tilt the situation in her favor. But the reality ahead looked far more uncertain and far more dangerous than she anticipated. The consequences of everything she had done continued to spread through Genoa City like cracks in fragile glass, threatening to shatter lives all around her. Even when she tried to regain control, fate seemed determined to remind her that some damage could not be undone so easily. Christine Blair Romalotti appeared unwilling to back down, and her refusal to drop the charges left Phyllis staring directly into the possibility of a brutal legal battle that could destroy what little stability remained in her life. Every conversation carried an edge of tension, every hallway seemed colder, and every moment felt weighed down by the looming fear of consequences finally catching up with her. Yet while Phyllis struggled to hold herself together, another unstable force was quietly moving in the shadows. Patty, unpredictable and emotionally volatile as ever, would soon slip into Matt's room unnoticed, and in a shocking move that could alter everything, she would grant him his freedom. The moment carried an eerie sense of inevitability, as though two damaged souls were being drawn together by chaos itself. That single act threatened to cement a disturbing partnership between Patty and Matt, one built not on trust or love, but on obsession, instability, and mutual desperation. And when Jack Abbott eventually abandoned his own uneasy alliance with Patty, the emotional fallout threatened to become explosive. Patty had always been deeply sensitive to rejection, and Jack's decision could easily reopen old wounds and ignite a dangerous retaliation that no one saw coming. At the same time, Jack and Diane Jenkins Abbott's renewed connection only poured gasoline onto Patty's emotional instability. Their reunion represented everything Patty could never truly have: love, reconciliation, and a second chance. And the sight of them rebuilding their relationship threatened to send her spiraling even further into darkness. While emotional storms brewed across the city, Devin Winters found himself sharing an important and deeply personal conversation with Mariah Copeland at her mental health facility. The atmosphere surrounding their discussion carried a heavy emotional weight, filled with vulnerability, fear, and the painful acknowledgement that healing is never simple. Mariah's struggles remained deeply rooted beneath the surface, and Devin's presence became one of the few comforting anchors she could still hold on to. Yet even as one relationship fought to survive emotional hardship, another woman found herself drowning in anxiety of her own. Sally Spectra could not escape the overwhelming stress tightening around her life, and every fearful thought only intensified the emotional pressure she carried while expecting a child. The fear wasn't only about herself anymore. It was about protecting the future growing inside her, and the possibility that Billy Abbott's legal troubles could tear their fragile happiness apart before it truly had a chance to begin. Billy, determined not to lose everything, would soon make a crucial visit to Kane Ashby's train, seeking guidance and perhaps even protection as he desperately tried to avoid prison. The atmosphere surrounding Billy carried the exhaustion of a man who had spent too many years making mistakes and fighting consequences, yet now the stakes felt more personal than ever before. This was no longer just about saving himself, it was about being present for the child Sally carried and refusing to let his past destroy their future. Every decision Billy made carried the urgency of someone clinging to one final chance at redemption. Meanwhile, another devastating battle was unfolding inside the Newman family, as Nick Newman's ongoing drug use finally pushed his loved ones to intervene. The concern surrounding Nick was impossible to ignore, and the emotional toll on the family had reached a breaking point. Watching someone they loved slowly lose himself created a painful atmosphere filled with fear, helplessness, and desperation for change. Yet, amid the darkness, there was also a glimmer of hope emerging far away in New York. After Malcolm Winter's medical procedure, positive signs finally began to appear, bringing a cautious sense of relief to those who loved him. Lily Winters, carrying months of emotional exhaustion and fear on her shoulders, finally allowed herself to breathe again as hope slowly returned. The possibility that Malcolm could make a full recovery created warm and deeply emotional moments between Lily, Dr. Stephanie Simmons, and Holden Novak. In the middle of so much pain and uncertainty, these quieter scenes carried a softness that reminded everyone that healing, however fragile, was still possible. Yet emotions in New York were growing complicated in other ways as well. Holden and Claire Newman found themselves pulled closer together, their chemistry becoming harder and harder to resist as lingering tension transformed into temptation. Their emotional walls slowly crumbled beneath the intimacy of shared vulnerability, and before long, they seemed poised to surrender to the passion building between them. Holden also carried secrets connected to the mysterious Los Angeles story, and after promising Claire the truth if she joined him in New York, the pressure to finally come clean continued to intensify. As the week of May 25 approached, the emotional focus shifted heavily toward Nick Newman's painful road to recovery. Entering rehab marked a major turning point, but it also forced Nick to confront the darkest parts of himself, the pain, regret, and emptiness that had fueled his addiction for so long. Sharon Newman, alongside the rest of the Newman family, felt an overwhelming sense of relief knowing Nick had finally taken this step, but beneath that relief remained the sobering reality that recovery would not come easily. The journey ahead promised setbacks, emotional breakdowns, and painful self-discovery. Every day inside rehab would test Nick in ways he never expected, forcing him to fight not only for sobriety but for the chance to become himself again. Back in Genoa City, Patty's increasingly dangerous obsession with Matt continued spiraling into deeply troubling territory. Although Patty constantly insisted that she had changed and rehabilitated herself, the cracks in that carefully constructed image were becoming impossible to ignore. The longer she remained in Genoa City, surrounded by emotional triggers and unresolved trauma, the more unstable she seemed to become. Her fixation on Matt threatened to drag both of them toward consequences far darker than anyone anticipated. Then, as June arrived, the emotional tides began shifting once again when Lily returned from New York carrying an entirely new perspective on her future and her heart. Before leaving, she had shared a kiss with Kane Ashby, a moment filled with tenderness, nostalgia, and the undeniable spark of unfinished love. That kiss lingered in her mind long after she returned home, awakening emotions she had tried for so long to suppress. Slowly, Lily began accepting the possibility that Kane might truly be the person she was meant to find her way back to. The emotional gravity pulling them together grew stronger with every passing moment, creating the sense that destiny itself was quietly guiding them toward reunion. But not everyone was willing to accept that outcome. Devin Winters, protective and deeply concerned, seemed prepared to fight against their reconciliation with everything he had. Whether driven by fear, loyalty, or distrust, Devin clearly believed Kane's return could bring heartbreak and chaos back into Lily's life, and that looming conflict threatened to ignite powerful emotional battles within the family. Meanwhile, Matt Clark faced a devastating reckoning as more details about his terrible crimes and the pain he caused finally came crashing down around him. The weight of his actions became impossible to escape, and for perhaps the first time, genuine remorse appeared to break through his defenses. Matt's emotional collapse carried a haunting sincerity as he reflected on the destruction he had left behind, the innocent people he had hurt, and the lives forever altered by his choices. In emotional scenes filled with regret and vulnerability, he may even attempt heartfelt apologies to those he wronged, hoping desperately for some measure of forgiveness or redemption. But forgiveness was never going to come easily, especially from the Newmans. The family's anger, grief, and resentment remained fierce, and many of them saw no reason to offer mercy to a man responsible for so much suffering. Even if Matt truly wanted to change, the path ahead promised more obstacles, more judgment, and more painful consequences waiting in the shadows. And as the next 3 weeks unfolded, Genoa City stood on the edge of emotional upheaval, with love rekindled, secrets exposed, and dangerous obsessions threatening to consume everyone caught in their path. The deeper Genoa City slipped into June, the more every relationship seemed to teeter dangerously between salvation and destruction, as though the entire town had become trapped beneath an emotional storm no one could escape. Nights grew heavier with tension, and behind the glowing windows of lavish homes, luxury suites, and quiet hospital rooms, hearts were breaking in silence while old wounds reopened with terrifying force. For Sally Spectra, the emotional burden she carried was becoming harder to hide with every passing day. Her pregnancy should have been a time filled with excitement, hope, and dreams of a new beginning, yet instead she found herself constantly haunted by fear. Every conversation about Billy's legal troubles sent waves of anxiety crashing through her, and even the smallest uncertainty seemed capable of unraveling the fragile sense of peace she was trying so desperately to maintain. There were moments when she sat alone, resting a trembling hand against her stomach, silently wondering whether the chaos surrounding Billy would rob their child of the stable future she longed to give. The pressure building inside her heart became almost unbearable, because loving Billy also meant living with the painful reality that disaster often followed him wherever he went. Billy, meanwhile, carried the weight of that truth everywhere he turned. His meeting with Kane Ashby aboard the train became more than just a conversation about avoiding prison. It became a deeply emotional confrontation with the life he had built through years of reckless choices and painful mistakes. The train itself seemed suspended outside time, rattling through the darkness like a moving confessional where Billy could no longer run from his regrets. Kane listened carefully as Billy spoke about Sally, about the baby, and about the desperate need to finally become the kind of man his family could rely on. There was exhaustion in Billy's voice, but there was also sincerity, the kind that only emerges when someone realizes they are standing at the edge of losing everything that matters. For once, Billy wasn't chasing thrills or trying to outsmart his enemies. He was simply trying to survive long enough to protect the people he loved. And that shift in him carried emotional weight that even Kane could not ignore. Elsewhere, Nick Newman's journey into rehab became one of the most emotionally raw and painful chapters of his life. The walls of the treatment center stripped away every distraction and forced him into brutal honesty with himself. There were no boardrooms, no family power struggles, no opportunities to hide behind the Newman name. Only the crushing reality of addiction staring him directly in the face. The emotional withdrawal was relentless, leaving Nick exhausted, irritable, and overwhelmed by guilt over the pain he had caused his family. Sharon remained one of the few steady lights in his darkness, offering support that came not from judgment, but from genuine love and concern. Even so, there were moments when Nick doubted whether he could truly reclaim the man he used to be. Recovery felt terrifying because it demanded vulnerability, and vulnerability had always been one of the hardest things for Nick to accept. Yet somewhere beneath the fear and emotional wreckage, the smallest spark of determination still remained alive. Back in Genoa City, Patty's mental and emotional instability was escalating into something far more dangerous than anyone realized. Her fixation on Matt had evolved into an unhealthy emotional dependency that blurred the line between devotion and obsession. She convinced herself that only she truly understood him, only she could save him, and that belief pushed her deeper into irrational behavior. Every time someone questioned her actions or tried to interfere, Patty seemed to retreat further into paranoia and emotional volatility. Jack Abbott's rejection continued to echo painfully inside her mind, intensifying feelings of abandonment she had never fully healed from. Watching Jack and Diane reconnect only sharpened her emotional unraveling, because their happiness became a cruel reminder of everything Patty believed had been stolen from her. The anger building inside her no longer felt temporary or controllable. It felt explosive, unpredictable, and terrifyingly close to detonating. At the same time, Matt himself found his emotional defenses collapsing under the crushing weight of guilt and exposure. As more horrifying details about his crimes surfaced, he was forced to confront the devastation he had caused in ways he never truly had before. Faces of the people he hurt seemed to haunt him constantly, their suffering impossible to erase from his conscience. His remorse appeared genuine now, stripped of manipulation and arrogance, replaced instead by deep emotional exhaustion and shame. In several emotional encounters, Matt attempted to apologize to those he wronged, speaking with the trembling vulnerability of someone who finally understood the magnitude of his destruction. But apologies alone could not heal years of pain, and the Newmans remained deeply unwilling to forgive. Their fury came not only from what Matt had done, but from the lasting scars his actions left behind on the people they loved most. Every interaction between Matt and the Newman family carried unbearable emotional tension, as though the entire room itself could crack beneath the weight of unresolved grief and rage. Meanwhile, Lily Winters returned from New York forever changed by the emotions she could no longer deny. The kiss she shared with Kane Ashby before leaving had awakened feelings she thought were buried in the past, and now those emotions followed her everywhere. Memories of their history resurfaced with painful clarity, the love they once shared, the dreams they built together, and the heartbreak that tore them apart. Yet this time felt different. There was maturity in the way Lily viewed Kane now, a quiet understanding that life had changed both of them in ways neither expected. The possibility of reconciliation no longer felt reckless or impossible. Instead, it felt strangely inevitable. Kane, too, seemed transformed, carrying himself with a sincerity and emotional openness that slowly broke down Lily's remaining resistance. But Devin Winters watched all of this unfold with growing concern, fearing that Lily was walking directly back into a relationship destined to hurt her again. His protective instincts intensified with every moment he saw Lily soften toward Kane, setting the stage for emotional confrontations that threatened to fracture the family even further. And through it all, Genoa City itself seemed to pulse with restless energy, as though every secret, every betrayal, and every unresolved emotion was building toward an unavoidable explosion. Relationships were being tested from every direction. Some people fought desperately for redemption, while others clung to love they thought was long gone. Hope flickered in unexpected places, yet danger lingered close behind it, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As June moved forward, the lines between forgiveness and revenge, healing and destruction, became more blurred than ever before. And for the residents of Genoa City, one painful truth was becoming impossible to ignore. No matter how hard they tried to outrun the past, it always found a way to return.